Anniversary meal, written by anti-money squandering. "Aren't you excited, Jovern?" Margaretta chirped, her plumage resplendent with the golden and silver feathers he had purchased her for their anniversary. He took a moment to admire her with a few clacks of his beak, causing her to titter, but also buffeted him with a wing to respond. "Oh, my sky, not so rough. Yes, I am excited. Not as much as you, clearly." The two parvets stood outside the hottest new restaurant in the city, Various. It had quickly drawn quite a buzz amongst the locals, not to mention an initial tidal wave of critics eager to assess this boldly premised venue. Where most restaurants stuck to a single species cuisine, Various claimed to be able to cater to everyone under one roof, and from the initial reviews, this seemed to be more than a hollow boast. Jovern shook his feathers, reaching up with one claw-tipped wing to remove his streamlined orange hat. He offered his other wing to his mate, who laid her feathers on top, and together they approached the vaulted doors of the restaurant. A human dressed in white and black bared its teeth as they approached and lowered its head. They were an odd mammal species, but Jovern understood deference when he saw it, ducking his own beak sharply forward in acknowledgement. The human opened the large doors and ushered them inside. They found themselves in a small initial antechamber, dim but not dark, with large flickering sconces on either side. "Plevetta and Terence came here when it first opened," Margaretta whispered to him, twisting her head from side to side to take it all in. "They still talk about it now." Jovern made to respond when another human emerged, dressed as one outside. He too lowered his upper half of his body as he approached. Jovern consciously patted the translator, stylized as a golden amulet, at his chest as the human straightened and bared his teeth. "Sir, madam, welcome to Various." Jovern began to respond when he realized that his translator had not activated, and that the human had actually greeted them in passable, if low-pitched, parvita. His wife tittered again, and despite himself he felt a growing excitement in his own blue-feathered breast. He handed his hat to the human, who took it graciously, and continued, this time utilizing the translator. "May I take your name for the reservation, sir?" "Of course, it'll be under Jovern Flit." The human listened to the translator, a small tablet appearing sleekly in their pale hand. "Excellent. If both of you would care to follow me, I'll show you to your table." The human turned and walked through a heavy curtain at the side of the antechamber, holding it open for the two parvets. Once through the other side, the avian aliens paused, taking in the multitude of sights and smells that flowed and billowed around them. The restaurant itself was bigger than expected, with vaulted ceilings. The room was arrayed almost a wheel, with spokes forming distinct areas and environs suited for the varying species that were dining there. The center of the room, the wheel itself, was the largest, and its multitude of different tables were intermixed with aliens of every race feasting together. As they walked further in, Jovern glanced to the left and saw a group of tables that was clearly a buffet section, a wave of vibrant colors. He and his wife were led past him towards the center and the sea of diverse diners, and he felt an almost perverse pleasure in this, as if it demonstrated them as daring, risk-takers. He ruffled his feathers as they walked, and Margaretta blinked at him, clacking her beak happily at the sight of him taking it all in. They approached an empty table near the center, a simple enough circular design. No seats were apparent, but as they neared it, two more humans started out from their sides, their arms laden with the purchase preferred by Parvet. The two humans had expertly set the seating and disappeared again by the time they reached the table. "Your table, sir, madam," the human stated, waiting with his limbs folded behind his back as the two elegantly climbed upon their perches. The table, clearly activated by some sensor, rose slightly to ensure it was within comfortable distance for the two guests. Margaretta fanned her wings gently in delight. "We have some very exciting menus for you to try tonight. Our head chef has worked tirelessly to ensure that everyone will find something very much to their liking, and at Various, we really do mean everyone." Jovern looked around, noting that the tables nearest to them all held different species. Each sat in chairs most comfortable for them. To their left sat A sceptric couple, tentacles intertwined and oblivious to their surroundings. Their lower halves were sprawled within liquid-filled half-tanks, a murky grey for one and a more amber hue for the other. He realized he was staring and turned his gaze to a family of armlings nearby, the parents substantially bigger than their minuscule brood of younglings. The only other table he could see without making his peeking obvious was the trio of Waldvarks, lounging on miniature chase long, their long snouts extending over their table. All three seemed affectionate towards each other, and they muttered low words each translator could not make out. "Waldvarks usually form mated trios, dear," Margareta said, her tone teasing even as he blinked in consternation. "It is fascinating to dine amongst all this, but perhaps we can focus on each other tonight." "Of course, my Sky," he replied, laughing at himself. The human from earlier had gone, no doubt, retired back to the front of the restaurant, but another swiftly approached their table. Jovrin knew this was a different one, but it was very difficult to tell, with their flat faces and lack of color. He thought this one's hair may have been lighter than the previous. Beyond that, he was unsure. "Sir, madam, could I please direct your attention to the menus? These have been set to Barvita and feature the multitude of dishes that we offer here at Various." The two looked down at the interactive surface to see two blinking options. The first, a pulsing white, stated native. The second, a more vibrant orange, offered adventure. Their waiter pointed to the first. "Here you'll find a menu of classic and inspired Barvita dishes, as prepared by our talented chefs. No matter your taste, you'll certainly find something to your liking here. Or if sir and madam are feeling more courageous." He paused for effect before indicating the orange menu selection. "Various are proud to present what we believe to be the first interspecies culinary experiences. The menu features dishes from every sentient race in the galaxy and is tailored to your particular biology, to ensure that only dishes that are safe for consumption are included. Due to the wildly varying nature of these dishes, they are subcategorized in levels, from dishes well suited to your palate to those that'll offer a completely different spectrum of gastronomic indulgence." "So it's a menu of alien dishes that we can eat," Margareta said, her feathers ruffling at the thought. Her clawed wing brushed near the glowing button, but stopped short. "All confirmed safe? We could have armling food or human." The waiter confirmed, his teeth bared once more as he waited their decision. Margareta let her talon near the adventure menu once more before trilling and selecting native. Jovrin chirped indulgently and did the same. "Oh, it would be exciting, so exciting to eat as the aliens do, but maybe not now, on such an occasion." "Of course, madam," their waiter said smoothly, bowing as he left. "Please select from the interface and your food will be brought out to you immediately. If you need any assistance, please select the help button at the top and I'll be with you instantly. Enjoy your time with us at Various." Their order placed, the two Parvet chatted happily, talons intertwined on the table. The smells and half-translated chatter from around the restaurant was a heady, exotic mix, however, and Lovren found his attention wavering from his lovely mate. He looked up at her in time to catch her watching an interestingly assembled dish being brought out to the family of Aromlings, her feathers fluffed in embarrassment at being caught. "Sorry, my Sky, but it is fascinating. Is that their own cuisine, do you think, or a dish from another culture altogether?" Louvren, permission now given, focused in on the Aromlings table and studied as the family began to tuck into their multitude of dishes. It seemed their choices consisted of a feast of small plates, or to be more exact, spheres. Each transparent sphere was filled with a viscous, brightly colored gas that undulated and swirled within. The adult Aromlings extended long, thin snouts from their buoyant, bulbous bodies, looking almost like insect proboscis. "I think it must be from their own recipes. They seem very familiar with them. I wouldn't know where to start, or if we could even consume it." As they watched, a small attempt at secrecy being made, the Aromlings spread into an orb each, one a maelstrom of purple, the other a dueling dance of green and orange, their spherical bodies billowing slightly, and they sucked in the contents of the orbs, leaving around half of the gaseous gastronomy within. They turned to their younglings, their own smaller proboscises extended, and blew little amounts towards them, which was hastily consumed. The family made little bodily shakes that seemed to indicate enjoyment. I think that even I could somehow get that into my beak. It would leave me famished still, Margaretta trolled, Lovren laughing along with her. Oh, now that looks like something a bit more substantial. He followed her furtive beak point to the Sepric couple, who had now disentangled their tentacles in order to enjoy their food. In front of the larger Sepric was a small tank-like bowl, within which small luminous fish resided. For a moment he thought the fish were live, but once the Sepric had unspooled one tentacle into the water and sucked up a number of the aquatic treats, he realized that the tank instead had an artificial current used to simulate living creatures. The alien lifted its spoils to its fleshy beak and scarfed them down with untranslatable clicks. Across the table, the second Sepric had a similar tank, but theirs had only two larger fish, pitch black in color. Interspersed between them was a wavering fronds of a lilac seaweed that the Sepric expertly wove around their flesh before consuming. Lovren turned back, dipping his head into the fruit-flavored water bowl and tilting his head back to consume the fragrant liquid. It appears that the adventure menu is as daunting to every species, he said eventually, drawing Margaretta's attention back. She ducked her head in agreement, but was already looking over at the third table near us, occupied by a trip of Veldbarks. She looked back at Lovren, a gleam in her eye, and he realized what she was trying to get him to notice. One of the alien dishes looked a great deal different than the other two. The two more reserved Veldbark diners had in front of them elaborate mounds, with intricate details carved on the outside, which was littered with a network of varying shaped and sized holes. One was sat upon a platter, its outside a deep dark sheen like mahogany or chocolate, rising from the plate like a small mountain. The other was suspended from a hook secured somewhere in the dark ceiling above. Its exterior, a rich gold that ran in fat bands down its sides, its shape a heavy oval. Both Veldbarks squeaked excitedly at their dishes, their long black tongues snaking out to stab into the holes and extract some manner of nourishment. The golden offering seemed to have within it a rich sauce that coated the sable tongue that withdrew from it. The third Veldbark watched, and though its alien anatomy was hard to fathom, the also watching Parvot assumed it held some anticipation at the dish in front of itself. A bowl sat in front of it, containing a dark, thick sauce. Within the sauce was a plentiful portion of some sort of very finely diced meat. It was a small portion, but the Veldbark merely stared at it in trepidation until the chiding of its fellow diners goaded it into extending its tongue into the dish. It let its tongue explore the sauce alone at first, slithering it back within its long snout and blinking at the taste. It tilted its head and murmured something to the others that seemed positive, as its tongue stepped back in for a second taste. The middle-seated Veldbark, the one feasting on the golden dish, even attempted its own foray, shaking its head slightly but making small sounds that seemed to not indicate disgust. Emboldened, the adventurous alien diner slurped up some of the shredded meat substance, some of the sticky sauce coating the outside of its snout as it did so. It froze, blinking even more rapidly, and said something swiftly in its native tongue, to which its fellows squeaked and rapped small claws in the table. It shook its snout and turned to the side plate near it, upon which a long curled stem of greenery resided. A few bulbs of some sort of white vegetable balanced on top. The Veldbark inhaled one of the bulbs, crunching it with abandon, and the watching pervert surmised that this was a failsafe to cleanse its palate, ordered from its own menu. Before they could comment, their food dishes arrived, and both trilled excitedly as the familiar food was placed in front of them, albeit far more ostentatious than they were used to. Margaretta had opted for an edible bark pole that was fixed to their table, its surface studded with varying delectable fruits, each one drizzled or marinated in different succulent sauce. She pecked at it appreciatively, and then they waited and left with a bow as Lovren also began to tuck in. He'd gone for the slightly more substantial offering of a solid-seeded pillar, its contents stuck together with delicious fruit-flavored glue and with fat, juicy insects embedded within it, encouraging him to peck deeper in search of the tasty morsels. Their table was silent for a time, save for the enthused quiet squawks and the sound of beak hitting food. That certainly was some dish, Lovren acknowledged, taking another drink from his bowl. I should never have doubted you, Margareta. No, you shouldn't have, she responded, laughing, picking at the small remnants in front of her. Maybe next time we'll order from the interspecies menu. Maybe, Lovren said, glancing around at the bustling restaurant. His gaze fell on the Seprecs, now enjoying dessert. But it is quite an achievement. I wonder who runs their kitchen. A Seprec chef, perhaps. I've heard they are very capable, what with a multitude of limbs. I heard that it was the same as the waitstaff, Margareta mentioned idly, ensuring one of her ornamental golden feathers was situated properly along her neck. But a human, surely not. A human cooking for all these species. Margareta exhaled in a slight annoyance and was about to answer when the waiter, undetected until now, spoke up from the side of their table. Indeed, sir, Madam is correct. Would you care to meet the head chef here at Various? Loven, interested but not overly keen, saw his mate's immediate enthusiasm. No doubt already imagining telling her friends about this opportunity. He acquiesced, stepping gracefully from his perch and extending his clawed wing to Meverett, who accepted eagerly. They followed the human waiter through the restaurant, Margareta basking in the watching stares of the other diners. Eventually, they reached the rear, and the human paused, pushing open a large door and beckoning them to walk through. They did so, entering a huge open-plan kitchen that was a hive of activity, heat, and noise. There were roaring flames at the back and large tanks on the opposite side. The majority of the staff were grilling, chopping, or grinding were human. And near the watching Pabret, one human was particularly animated, his voice carrying easily as he screamed at his chefs. What the static is this, Thomas? Bones? Static, bones, static, static. Are you static with me? Are you static with me during the dinner rush? Their translator worked perfectly, beaming the head chef's comments into their language, but admitted words it could not understand or was programmed not to repeat. Their waiter turned to them and shrugged his small limbs, his teeth slightly bared. You'll have to forgive his language. He is a genius in the kitchen, but can be rather rough around the edges. They watched as the chef continued to scream, grabbing one young chef by the arm and forcing him over a dish, gesturing angrily. However, Chef Ramsay descends from an ancient line of human chefs. The waiter turned back and began to usher them swiftly out of the kitchen, as the loud clattering of fallen metal and crockery could be heard. We do hope that you enjoyed your time at Various, and will join us again soon. End of story. I would like to thank our T5 members and patrons, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Vidmori, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.